to energy. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 21st day of December 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge. And we are on text 31, on most of your pages 413. Chipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shashvach Chantim Nigachati Kaunteya Patijanihi Name Bhakta Panashiti Chipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shasvachantim Nagachati Kaunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakta Panashyati Chipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shasvachantim Nagachati Kaunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakta Panashyati Chipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shasvachantim Nigachati Kaunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakta Panashyati. Go ahead, Boo. Chipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shasvachantim Nigachati Kaunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakta Panashyati. Go ahead, Bhushan. Chipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shasvachantim Nigachati Kaunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakta Panashyati. Vadamanu. Chipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shasvachantim Nigachati Kaunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakta Panashyati. You want to try it? Chipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shasvachantim Nigachati Kaunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakta Panashyati. Word by words. Chipram, very soon, Bhavati becomes Dharma Atma, righteous. Shashvat, Shantim, lasting peace, Nigachati, attains. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Patijanihi, declare, never may my Bhaktaha, devotee, Panashyati, perishes. Translation. Now, it makes sense because he's referring to the previous verse. I'm just going to read the translation to the previous verse. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. He, that person, that devotee, quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Purport. This should not be misunderstood. In the 7th chapter, the Lord says that one who is engaged in mischievous activities cannot become a devotee of the Lord. One who is not a devotee of the Lord has no good qualifications whatsoever. The question remains then, how can a person engaged in abominable activities, either by accident or by intention, be a pure devotee? This question may justly be raised. The miscreants, as stated in the 7th chapter, who never come to the devotional service of the Lord, have no good qualifications, as is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Generally, a devotee who is engaged in the 9 kinds of devotional activities is engaged in the process of cleansing all material contamination from the heart. He puts the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, and all sinful contaminations are naturally washed away. Continuous thinking of the Supreme Lord makes him pure by nature. According to the Vedas, there is a certain regulation that if one falls down from his exalted position, he has to undergo certain ritualistic processes to purify himself. But here, there is no such condition because the purifying process is already there in the heart of the devotee, due to his remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, should be continued without stoppage. This will protect a devotee from all accidental fall downs. He will thus remain perpetually free from all material contaminations. Om Ajnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parambara, the disciplic succession. So, here we see, these two verses obviously go together. In text 30, Krishna is saying that even if one is engaged in the most abominable activity, suduracharo. Duracharo means bad. Suduracharo means very, very bad, sinful. But bhajate mam ananya bhak, he should be he's worshiping me with undeviating mind, ananya bhak. He should be considered a sadhu, samyak bhavasito hisa. And then what's the result if he continues that worship, that bhajan? Chipram bhavati dharmatma, that he quickly becomes righteous. Dharmatma means that he'll give up all his nonsense and become fixed in dharma or religion. And also attain lasting peace. Shashashanti. Now it's interesting, Prabhupada doesn't talk about it in the purport. Why does Krishna need to tell Arjuna to declare it? Why can't Krishna just declare it himself? You know the answer. Oh, you don't? Yeah, but that's not the reason why. The reason is that Krishna sometimes is known to break his promise. You remember that critical time when he promised not to fight on the battlefield in the war. But when Arjuna was in danger from Bhishma Dev told Duryodhana, because Duryodhana accused him because he had so much love and affection for the Pandavas, how could he fight against him with full concentration? You know, so he accused him, which is a big accusation for a Kshatriya. So Bhishma Dev said, okay, I promise you that I will annihilate Arjuna, and I think he said all the Pandavas, but certainly Arjuna, unless Krishna breaks his promise. I will force Krishna to break his promise that he wasn't going to fight. That was the deal. There was a whole thing. Krishna is sleeping, and Arjuna and Duryodhana approach him. You know, now Duryodhana, there's some kind of a convention that whoever you see first, then you'll offer them a boon or something like that. So Duryodhana was right at the head, and Arjuna was at the feet, his natural position. He wanted to be at the lotus feet. So when Krishna woke up, he saw Arjuna first. So he says, what do you want, Arjuna? And so there was some back and forth, and it was clear that Krishna said, okay, look, I have all this huge army, Akshauhani forces, which is a combination of infantry and cavalry and horses and elephants. And he had 16 of them or 20 of them. He had a big army from Dwarka. He said, on one side, there can be my armies, and I'll be on the other side. Now, but it doesn't. So you decide. So Duryodhana said, "Oh boy, I missed out. You know, Arjuna's going to take the soldiers, and I'll be stuck with this Krishna." But Arjuna, of course, took Krishna, and Duryodhana breathed a sigh of relief. Said, "Okay, I'll take the armies. You know, good deal." He was pretty dumb. So, but that promise was there that he wasn't going to fight. So Bhishma Dev told Duryodhana, okay, you're accusing me of not fighting strong enough? I will kill Arjuna and the other Pandavas tomorrow, because he was the greatest fighter, even though he was elderly, he was really empowered. Unless Krishna breaks his promise. So when it was getting near the end of the fighting of the day, and when the sun goes down, just when the sun goes down, they blow the conch shell, and that's it, and everyone puts down their weapons, and then they go and have dinner together. Yeah, it's like they just fought, tooth and nail. So anyway, Bhishma Dev had disabled Arjun. Arjun, I think his chariot was broken, and he was off the chariot, and he was about to annihilate Arjun. And then Krishna, he took the broken chariot wheel and he ran at Bhishma Dev, threatening to kill him. Like it's a chakra. He had his chakra. And Arjun and Bhishma Dev says, "I'm ready." He's a Mahajan. He's a devotee. And there's a verse where he says he was shooting his arrows at Krishna, and they were touching his body, and it was a whole rasa there, the chivalrous rasa. Even though they were fighting together, they were both enjoying tremendous pleasure. But he broke his promise. So here, in order to avoid people saying, yeah, you're going to promise, but you'll break that promise, he says, Kuntiya, son of Kunti, Arjun, you promise, Name Bhakta Panashiti, that my devotee never perishes. Now, what does that actually mean? Because all of us are in material bodies, and eventually those bodies are going to perish. But what it means is that once you start on the path of devotion, Krishna takes special interest. Now, we can be stubborn, we can get off the path, and we cannot do it properly, But still, nothing is lost. In our next life, we'll pick up again, and we'll have a better situation, and like that. So in that sense, you're not lost. You're not lost into the wilds of the material energy, and your whereabouts are unknown, so to speak. Krishna takes, if you do some sincere service, what to speak if you do to 95%, you're gonna on your way back home, back to God. So this is a very important pair of verses, and Prabhupada makes it clear in the previous verse that one should not try to take advantage of this and do all kinds of nonsense and still try to be a devotee. Prabhupada talks about that in the beginning, in the 7th chapter. I think he's quoting the end. He says, there's a verse, Yesham tvantakatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva mohinimakta bhajante mham julavata. That if you want to worship Krishna and practice devotional service with a firm vow and determination, then you have to give up all sinful activities. Antagatam papam. Papam is sin, anta means the end. So it's just the way it works, because if you're holding on to that, then that dilutes your will to make your mind, body, words, everything you have, dovetail them for Krishna's service. It's like two opposite directions. Personal sense gratification is exactly 180 degrees from service to Krishna. So these two verses are very famous, and now we're embarking on the last 3 verses, which are like a crescendo to the whole chapter. And in fact, the next verse I am going to reveal, for those of you who don't know, there has been a significant revision of the translation. It wasn't by me. Jayavada Swami did it. Jayavada Swami. But I agree with it. Are there any questions on this one?
Okay. Sorry, please.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you explain what falling down means?
Falling down, yes. Well, falling down usually connotes breaking one of the 4 regulative principles, especially the first one, no illicit sex. That's the conventional thing. But in a larger sense, it means a serious deviation from the do's and don'ts of devotional service. The idea of a fall down means that it's a serious stoppage to your devotional service, a serious blockage. You're going to have to get yourself straight and, pray for forgiveness and chant 64 rounds if you're really serious. In other words, it's usually pretty serious. But we should remember this, that as Krishna says here, if someone really is sincere and you see that, yes, over time the discrepancy has been eliminated entirely. Now there are various degrees. If it's something, how can I put it? Whatever happens, it's between adults. Then you can probably get over it. But if you're crazy enough to try to have sex with a child, it's going to be very difficult to come back. Very, very hard. And in fact, it's practically impossible. So it's just the way it is. And it, Krishna may give you all kinds of mercy, but it'll probably be manifested in the next life. You'll still have devotion, you go on, but so that's how it goes. All right, here we go. Another one? Go ahead.
Well, I just was going to ask a question follow-up. You went way deeper than I expected, but I was wondering if we felt depressed, would that mean that we had fallen down, we'd lost Krishna in our heart?
If you feel depressed?
Yeah.
It's probably an indication that you've committed something that you really regret, and you feel the how can I say, the pall, on your consciousness. I mean, I like to tell this story because I've been around so long. I spent 3 years in Los Angeles in the 70s working with the press. 75, 76, 77, 78, more like 3.5 years. And I remember one devotee, of course I won't mention any names, but he was a responsible devotee. He had a very responsible position in the press. And then he had some problem in his marriage. I don't know what it was, but it was really troubling him, And so I remember I was standing right behind him, and there was Rukmini Dwarkadish. Just like here, if you've mostly been in this temple, you don't know that most of the temples have Prabhupada in the back, and there has to be an open line between them, But in L.A., he's on the side, just like here. So therefore, he was standing right in front of Rukmini Dwarkadish, and I was standing right behind him. But I noticed, I looked at him, and he couldn't look at the deities. He could not face the deities because of what had happened, And then after some time, we didn't see him anymore, So we should always remember that the blessing, the ability to perform devotional service, is a great blessing given by Krishna and the spiritual master. That, it's a sign that, there's some sign of sincerity here, so, let them stay in the devotional atmosphere amongst devotees and learn. But if they create a disturbance, it's just like the spiritual world. These temples are meant to be little Vaikuntha embassies, So, what is it in Vaikuntha? If you're creating a disturbance, if you don't want to serve Krishna, you can't stay there. You're creating a disturbance for all the other devotees. So similarly, in a temple, if you're off, if you're not getting up, and you're showing signs of the modes of passion and ignorance, then you'll probably be asked to leave. And even before you're asked to leave, you'll feel very uncomfortable when you won't go. So it's a great blessing just to be able to sit amongst devotees and relish a kirtan, and be in that association. We should remember that and treasure it, and therefore not, worst thing to do is offend devotees. Okay, let's go on to 32. Mami parta vipashritya yepisyu papayoneyaha striyo vaishyas tatha shudras tepi yanti param gatim. All right, I'm gonna read the new translation, see if you can see the difference, okay? O son of Prita, those who take shelter in me, though they be low-born, women, Vaishyas, merchants, or Shudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. See the difference? And there's also a difference there's a sentence in the paragraph, in the purport that was left out also, that supported that change, but I forget exactly what it is. Purport. It is clearly declared here by the Supreme Lord that in devotional service there is no distinction between the lower and higher classes of people. In the material conception of life, there are such divisions. But for a person engaged in transcendental devotional service to the Lord, there are not. Everyone is eligible for the supreme destination. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.18, it is stated that even the lowest, who are called chandalas, dog-eaters, can be purified by association with a pure devotee. Therefore, devotional service and the guidance of a pure devotee are so strong that there is no discrimination between the lower and higher classes of men. Anyone can take to it. The most simple man taking shelter of the pure devotee can be purified by proper guidance. According to the different modes of material nature, men are classified in the mode of goodness, Brahmins, the mode of passion, Kshatriyas, or administrators, the mixed modes of passion and ignorance, Vaishyas or merchants, and the mode of ignorance, Shudras or workers. Those lower than them are called chandalas, and they are born in sinful families. That's where this comes up, papa yonia, if you look at the end of the first line. Papa means sin. Generally, the association of those born in sinful families is not accepted by the higher classes. But the process of devotional service is so strong that the pure devotee of the Supreme Lord can enable people of all the lower classes to attain the highest perfection of life. This is possible only when one takes shelter of Krishna. As indicated here by the word vyapashritya, one has to take shelter completely of Krishna. Then one can become much greater than the great Gyanis and Yogis. So this is a very important verse. It's quite revolutionary when you think in terms of the caste system that is what Varnashram has become in India, where you have Brahmins who, I'm born in a Brahmin family, and they lord it over those lower castes. That's not how it's supposed to work. Krishna says in the 18th chapter, guna karma vibhagasha. Guna means quality, karma means activity. That's what counts. So you may be born in a Brahmin family, but if you're acting like a Shudra, and you don't have the qualities of a Brahmin, means self-control, knowledge, and all these things, then you're not recognized as a Brahmin. If you try to claim status as a Brahmin, then that's cheating, and that's demonic. So, Kim Punar Brahmana. Now this speaks, Kim Punar means how much more this is so. What is so? That if one takes shelter of me, they can attain. And this can attain, just a little editing, because this is what I live with every day. But it's interesting because we're all reading these books. Prabhupada had here, can approach the supreme destination. He often used, if you research the Vedas, he often used that word approach to mean attain. But they're really different words. And even the can attain, they will attain. You look at this, look at the Sanskrit. It often comes out very clearly in the word by words. Tepi, even they, all these people that he must mention, yanti, they go to the supreme destination. There's no question that they attain it. Because vyapashritya. Ashritya means to take shelter. The VY means intensive, totally take shelter. What does Prabhupada have here? Particularly taking shelter. Means, in other words, they're not holding anything back. They're taking full shelter. Whether they're a woman, Vaishya, Shudra, or an outcast. There's a verse in the, Prabhupada is referring to it here. I recognize it, though he doesn't quote the Sanskrit. The prayers of Shukadeva Goswami in the second canto. He's getting ready to speak to Maharaj Parikshit and teach him the Bhagavatam, but he has all these prayers at first. And one of them is very famous. Prabhupada always quoted it. Kirato hunanda pulinda pulkasha abir shamba javanakashadaya yenye yapapa yadapashayashaya shujjandi tasmai prabhavishnave namaha. So these are all names of groups of people who are outside the Vedic culture. Like I know I know some of them almost, but the one that I know for sure is the Kasa races. These are the Chinese, Mongolians, Japanese, like that. They're outside India, But what this verse says doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who you are. You could be, low-born as anything. But Yen Ye Chapapa and other sinful classes that I haven't mentioned. Yadapashya Yashya means taking shelter of one who's taking shelter, taker of Vishnu. This is important. It's very hard to take direct shelter of Krishna. We don't see him, but we take shelter of one who's completely taken shelter of Krishna, the spiritual master, the pure devotee. And then we get the same benefit. Even better, because Krishna is happier if we take shelter of his devotee. So this is saying then shuddhanti. Now this word shuddhanti is very important because the whole process of devotional service is purification. It keeps coming up. Prabhupada talked about the purification that comes from hearing Krishna Katha and hearing the holy name. Right near the beginning of the Bhagavatam, you'll find in the second chapter, first canto. There's about There's about 16 verses from the second chapter, 6th verse to the second chapter, 21st verse, and it's defining what real dharma is there, what supreme dharma is. What is that dharma? What is that activity that we can perform that'll completely satisfy the self? So he gives this revolutionary explanation. And in fact, we made a book out of those verses. It's called Dharma, the Way of Transcendence, because Prabhupada would speak on them so often, so we have his commentary on each one as well as the purport. So he says there, that supreme Dharma, Savai Pungsang Paro Dharma, Yato Bhakti Hokshaje, is Bhakti, devotional service unto Hokshaja. Now Prabhupada explains what this word means. This is the name of Krishna. It has three components, Adha, Aksha, and Ja. So Ja is short for Janma, means generate, gives birth to. And Aksha is the senses, especially the eyes, but it includes all the senses. But Adha means down. So what this means is that the Lord, He pushes down all knowledge that we try to get by our senses and mind. Avan Manasa Gochara, He's beyond the realm of our mundane words and thought. So in order to know Him, we have to get the instruction from above, Krishna directly or his representative. Prabhupada constantly uses this phrase, transparent via medium, which he meant transparent medium, which he was. Any pure devotee is pure because he's not distorting the message. He's giving it as it is. That's the whole point of the as it is. So that sound vibration, if we hear it and meditate on it and we absorb it, that's very purifying. Later on, as I'm not going to go through all the verses, or that would be a special class, but he talks about how one has to tasmat bharata sarvatma. This word in the middle of the verses, he says tasmat. Tasmat bharata sarvatma bhagavan ishwarohari shrotavya krititavyasa dhyeyak puja tanichida. This is a summary of Krishna consciousness. Tasmad, if you want to achieve realization of the supreme manifestation of the absolute truth, which he just gave some of you may have heard, the absolute truth manifests in three phases: Brahman, which is undifferentiated light; Paramatma, the localized Paramatma in everyone's heart; and Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if one wants to achieve realization of the supreme form, the Bhagavan, then this is the formula. Bharata, the descendant of King Parikshit. Sarvatma, now he gives these different definitions of the Supreme. Sarvatma, that's the super soul, the soul in everyone's heart. Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishvaro Hari, the Supreme Controller, and Hari, the Lord who takes away everything inauspicious. What should we do? Shrotavya, hear about Him, chant about Him. Shrotavya, dhyeya, meditate on Him, and worship Him. In other words, those are the processes of devotional service. But how are we going to do that unless we get an attachment to hear? And this is what the next few verses are. Therefore, one has to develop an attachment to hear about the Lord. This is the key element. Just like here, you're hearing about Krishna, you're not hearing about anything else. So that comes from service to the pure devotee. Shushu sho sharadhanasya vasudeva kata ruchi. Ruchi means taste, right? And kata means talks. Vasudeva is the name for Krishna. So a taste for the talks, for the sound vibrations, beginning with the holy name of Krishna, this is the key element, because it's so purifying. And finally, at the end, he comes to the last 4 or 5 verses, which form the basis of that little pamphlet many of you are familiar with, Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure. You remember that? You used to distribute those by the millions. There's a lecture in there that's the heart of it, that Prabhupada gives on this verse. So the verse is like this. And it comes back to this idea of cleansing. Krishna is cleansing from within the heart, the inauspicious things. Shinbatam sukata Krishna, punya shavana kirtana, ridyandaksyo yabhadrani vidunoti suritsatam. There's so many important points. So hearing. What is it? Krishna is the subject here. He's understanding that we're hearing, because he's in the heart. Swakata, that we're hearing his own kata, and he's seeing that they're doing it purely, So he's very enlivened, So what does he do? Punya Shavana Kirtana, that sound vibration which gives piety just by being heard and chanted. So pure. Punya Shavana Kirtana. Ridyantaksto, situated in the heart. Yabhadrani Vidunoti. He cleanses away all the abhadras, the inauspicious things. What's the inauspicious things? Unsatisfied material desires, anxieties, grudges that you're holding, a million different things in the heart. Wholesale cleanse is going on. What does Lord Chaitanya say? Chaito Dharma Marjanam. That's the first thing. Vidodonti Suritsatam. Now why does he do that? Because he's the best well-wishing friend of the devotee. We should always remember that. You know, every morning when we offer our obeisances to the deities, at the greeting. So when we get to the middle altar, of course, we offer obeisance. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate. So, oh Krishna, you're an ocean of mercy. Dina Bandho, you're a friend of the poor. Jagatpate. But you're also the master of the universe. Therefore, your compassion, and it can really be meaningful. You can give so many things in compassion. In other words, if you're going to take shelter of someone, maybe we should take shelter of God. Why not? You know, He's the most powerful. Because when you take shelter of something lesser, then you'll be frustrated. This becomes the fallible soldiers at the beginning of Zen. So anyway, I'm just to emphasize this idea of cleansing, and it goes on that when the verse I chant every day when I get Bhagavatam class, every time I get Bhagavatam class, because the purification goes on, but it doesn't happen all at once. But it's a process. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu. Nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavadgita shloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. So, by regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in wonderful songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So this is a high stage of purification. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami gives this wonderful 2 verses describing the progression from faith, shraddha, to prema, love. Two verses. So the first is a little faith, means enough to bring you into the association of devotees. Now in this age, you know, you can get association online, you can get association from books, from media, you know, but one way or another, you have to get that. And then from that association, you desire more closer association. Adau shraddha tatak saru sangha. Saru sangha. Bhajana kriya. By associating with devotees, then what are you going to do? Well, let me try it also. You got any extra beads? You learn how to chant japa, and before you know it, you know. So that chanting of japa is there. Then there's a process of anartana vritti, through the practice of the different devotional principles and giving up what's in obstacles. And so that anartana vritti is same as what was talked about before, that inauspicious things are being cleansed away. Then you come to the point of real faith, nishta, and that's defined by Lord Chaitanya in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Shraddha shabde. This word shabde is an idiom which used when they say is defined as. There's a lot of those in CC. Shraddha shabde vishwas kohe sudridha dishchoy Krishna bhakti korle sarva karma kritahoy. This is Lord Chaitanya's definition of real shraddha. And that's the nishta stage, which means, sudridha dishchoy means extremely firm determination that what? I'm absolutely 100% convinced that just by practicing more devotional service, all my aspirations will be fulfilled in life. That's real faith. It's not easy to come to that point. But that's a sign of real purity. Now what happens there is that everything becomes more tasty. Krishna is giving you more ruchi. The holy name, the association, the deities, the prasadam, it's already tasty, but it becomes even more. So that ruchi, that's attraction for Krishna, that matures into real asakti and in bhava and prema, and the whole thing comes in, eventually shraddha to prema. So back to our verses here. If one takes shelter of Krishna, it doesn't matter who you are. Animals, you know, we got Gajendra, and even the crocodile benefited, you know, and there's plenty of animals in the Bhagavatam who become exalted because they take shelter of Krishna. What to speak of human beings? So that's within our compass of things that we can do. Yes, it may be difficult because we have so many impurities, but if we get inspired by the goal, which is finally ending our birth and death in this material world and going back home, back to Godhead, then we can be have enough will to overcome the obstacles in devotional service. So that's So now he's saying, what to speak of the Brahmins? In other words, this is Papayoni now, these Brahmins who are already pious, and the devotees, Bhakta Raja Shayastata, and the saintly kings, Anityam Asukam Lokam, in this world which is temporary and miserable, Anityam Asukam Lokam, Imam Prapa Bhajasvamam, they attain me by worshipping me in this way, by taking full shelter of me. So, in other words, it includes everybody, Papayonis and lower birth, what to speak of higher birth. So it's, and the process of surrender is there in the next verse, the key verse that's repeated again in the 18th chapter. Okay, sorry, I kind of got carried away. Any questions, comments? Go ahead.
I have a quick one if no one else.
Yeah.
At the end of the purport here, it says that then one can become greater than jnanis and yogis. We know what yogis are, but what is a jnani?
The end of the purport to 33?
I'm sorry, yeah, didn't we just, oh, you were on 33, okay, I went back.
No, maybe did I do 33?
No.
Not yet. Okay, you're right. So the Gyanis means generally the impersonalists, that they're trying to attain the absolute truth by just using their intelligence and mind and not actually engaging in any devotional service. And so they usually come, to the conclusion that, it's the Brahman, And so, but unfortunately, for devotees, that kaivalyam nadakayate is hell. Why? Because there's no Krishna there. There's no senses. There's no devotional service. Can you imagine? Would you like to get liberation? But, there'll be no deities, there'll be no activity, there'll be no chanting. Just your consciousness. What devotee will take it? Forget it. So that's why it's better than the Jnanis and the Yogis. All right, 33. Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta raja shayastata anityam sukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmins, the devotees, and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Purport. In this material world, there are classifications of people. But, after all, this world is not a happy place for anyone. It is clearly stated here, Anityam Asukam Lokam. This world is temporary and full of miseries. Not habitable for any sane gentleman. He's quoting Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati here. This world is declared by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be temporary and full of miseries. Dukali and Mashashvatam. He's quoting the 7th chapter. Some philosophers, especially Mayavadi philosophers, say that this world is false. But we can understand from the Bhagavad Gita that the world is not false, it is temporary. There is a difference between temporary and false. This world is temporary, but there is another world which is eternal. This world is miserable, but the other world is eternal and blissful. Arjuna was born in a saintly royal family. To him also the Lord says, "Take to my devotional service and come quickly back to Godhead, back home." No one should remain in this temporary world, full as it is with miseries. Everyone should attach himself to the bosom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead so that he can be eternally happy. The devotional service of the Supreme Lord is the only process by which all problems of all classes of men can be solved. Everyone should therefore take to Krishna consciousness and make his life perfect. I don't know about you, but when Govardhan gives class, I just love it. But he tells all these stories, It's unique. But it's just, of course he's telling the stories mostly of the people who stop and he has, interaction. But as he said, there's many people who don't stop. But just reading this, where are you going to find this? It's elsewhere. This is someone who's obviously experiencing this. He's not trying to sell you something and make money. Otherwise, why would he come all the way to America with $5 in his pocket? I mean, it's not a business deal. And even when he got so ill and went back to India, he could have just stayed there in Vrindavan, but he came back because his beloved devotees were there. It's obviously something else. So here he promised, he's saying, solve all the problems, by which all problems of all classes of men, people, can be solved. Everyone should therefore take the Krishna consciousness and make his life perfect. So, and when you read it, it's speaking to you on various levels. And if you're at all sensitive and open to it, it's very enlivening. It's unique. You don't find this. You find all kinds of speculative solutions and this and that. But Prabhupada is talking about, because Krishna is talking about, how to solve all the problems of life. Basically, by getting out of this world and going back to the real world. Not the real world. This world is real, but it's temporary. But the original, unchanging, spiritual world. And what's really amazing about it is that each of us is a spirit soul, and we're Satchidananda, Vigraha. We have that as our legacy. It can't be taken away. Just like we cannot be killed. We'll never die. Najayate mrite vakadacha. So right at the beginning you get that. And if you really believe that, it has to change your calculation about what's important to do in life. Because if you're just absorbed in all the temporary things of this world, you're obviously wasting your time not developing your full consciousness of what your eternal reality is and what the eternal relationship with the Supreme is. So by hearing his talks about his interactions with all these people who are so interested, I'm becoming more interested to read, but that's really the way it is. And Prabhupada, he loved to hear his own books read to him. And some devotees would ask, why is that? Prabhupada, you like to hear? Because I didn't write them. Krishna wrote them through him. And then sometimes Prabhupada said, I chose every word so carefully that I said, why did I change the words then, But he wanted he wanted the editors too. But anyway. But the idea is that there's no, how can I put it? There's no sleight of hand. In other words, Prabhupada is revealing exactly what he believes and what he feels here. It's not that, I better not put that in there because that'll ruin the whole thing, No, he's putting it, and sometimes it's pretty shocking. But that's a sign that he's not holding back. Okay, so, we have time for the last one. Should we do it? This is a key verse. Go ahead, Vaishnav. Pick it up.
This idea of a perfect life sounds great.
Yeah.
What is a Mayavadi?
A Mayavadi? Well, as the name indicates, it's those who say that all varieties, including those things like the name, form, quality, the pastimes of Krishna, it's all part of the illusory energy. All of these varieties. You notice when we say the prayers to Prabhupada, which he wrote, the second one, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschita Deshatarine. Now when you have a word ending in body, it means a philosophy of shunya. Shunya means voidism, that's the Buddhists. But the Nirvishesha, that's the Mayavadis. Nirvishesha means no details. I mean, just imagine how abominable that is. Our process is full of details, beginning with the holy name and the pastimes and the deities and the prasadam and the books, everything. But they're saying, no. We're going to aim for voiding out all those details and just be in our pure spiritual consciousness, kaivalya, and merge into the Brahman, and no more old age, disease, and death, no more birth. Well, how wonderful that is. Prabhupada compares it to like if you're in the hospital, you had an accident, and your leg is in traction, you're in there for weeks, And so what do you think? When am I going to get out? When am I going to finally get out of this thing? And so eventually the doctors come in and said, okay, Mr. Jones, you're well enough to leave the hospital. You just use this walker or cane or something, So it's what a relief, he goes out of the hospital. But what does he do? So now I can walk. So what does he do? Sit down on the curb? His whole being was just in getting rid of the pain. In other words, the impersonal aspiration is a very negative view of what the Absolute is. It's based on fear. It's based on fear of birth, old age, disease, and death. And right at the beginning of Bhagavatam, the second verse, Many may be familiar with this verse. Dharmak projitakaitavo tra. There's 6 times, or 4 or 5 times the word tra appears, meaning here. Here in the Bhagavatam is this. So it begins with kicking out all cheating religions, cheating dharmas, because we're talking what is real dharma. So Sridhar Swami, the original commentator, was I didn't see it, but my Gopi Pranadana told us, reading that, he says that one of the cheating dharmas is Mayavad, is saying that the absolute is without form, without pastimes, without qualities or anything. That's cheating, because it doesn't really give you a chance to reestablish your actual relationship, and it's also a complete misconstrual of what the absolute is. So it's a big thing, and so we Mayavadi philosophy say the world is false. So this idea is false means that there's nothing of value here. It comes in what is vairagya? Because vairagya is a very important aspect of transcendence. It means disentangling yourself from the attachments to the material world. Raga in this case means attachment to material sense pleasure. Vairagya means not. So, but there's yukta vairagya and polgu vairagya. Polgu means weak, and that's the kind that the Mayavadis have. So what is it characterized by? Prapanchikdaya buddhya harisambandhu vastanak mumukshubi parityago vairagyam polgu kachite. You notice that word mumukshubi means desiring moksha, that's liberation. We don't desire liberation primarily. We desire bhakti. We desire to be reinstated in our eternal loving relationship. We desire prema. And that's why you find our great acharyas, they're saying, I don't mind, beginning with Lord Chaitanya, I don't mind being reborn as long as I can practice unmotivated devotional service unto you. So, what this verse says is that even those things related to Hari, his name, form, deity form, all these things, prasadam, are aspects of Maya. They're also Maya. Prapanchikdaya Hari Sambandha Vastunak, those things, Vastunak, related to Hari, they say. Mumukshubi, parityago. So tyaga and vairagya are 2 different things. Tyaga is literally giving things up. And we also do that to some degree, illicit sex, meeting. But the real thing is vairagya means that even in the midst of things that maybe you were attached to before that would drag your mind away, you have no raga anymore, because your attachment has been redirected to Krishna. I love this word sublimation. So we're going to be attached. That's what it means to be a living entity. Even the animals are attached and everything. So, but as with the intelligence, we can redirect that attachment away from Maya or matter to Krishna. And that's perfection. When that attachment is wholly and solely to Krishna, and we simply engage Maya, or the material energy rather, in his service, then that's pure devotion. Hoitukiya pratiyata. So the Mayavadis aren't interested in that. They're afraid of having a form against, because all they know is form. No, that's birth, old age, disease, and death. No, thank you. And they don't believe in spiritual form, in the spiritual, the Swarup Siddhi in the spiritual world. So they're unfortunate. And you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lord Chaitanya, he converted some pretty heavy-duty Mayavadis. Prakashananda Saraswati, even Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, So that's why Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada is preaching the same words, the words of Lord Chaitanya. And in America, you didn't find really some staunch Mayavadis. You just found a few hedonists, and confused. It was much more fruitful field than even in India in those early days. Now India is like 3/4 of the movement. Okay, thank you for listening. We'll reconvene in Monday. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Well, I forgot all about my cold. I don't know what happened.